Let's make this a little more challenging. This is that same example that we did yesterday, where the restaurant owner wanted to see how customers viewed his customer service in his restaurant. Customers ranked the restaurant on a scale from 1 to 10, and the marks that they gave are in the table below. So remember, we drew a frequency bar graph of all of these marks, and that came from a tally and frequency table that we drew here. So let's start by determining the mean. I've just taken away that tally table and I've made this a little bit smaller, but it's the same frequency table as I showed in the previous slide. So to work out the mean, I could go back to my original table with all of the raw scores, those 40 raw scores that I showed you first. And I could add each of those up and divide by 40. That's going to take a long time. And I already have these values summarized in this frequency table. So it's actually very simple to use the frequency table to work out the mean. What this frequency table shows me is that I have 2 people who gave a mark of 1. So that means I have 1 plus 1. I have 3 2s. So that's 2 plus 2 plus 2. And 4 3s. And on and on and on. So the frequency table tells me how many of each mark I have in my set. So if I want to sum these, all I need to do is multiply the mark by the frequency. So I have 2 1s, 3 2s, 4 3s, and this is the same as doing 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, etc., etc. Simplifying, now it's important that you show this sum at the top. There's often a mark allocated to this step. And then can you divide correctly by n, which is the number of values. So my mean here is 5,05. That's the mean or the average rating that customers gave to this restaurant. Another method that you could use to find the mean is the same idea, but all I'm doing is multiplying the mark times the frequency, which I did in a long equation down here in the previous slide. Here I'm doing it in the table. So multiply the mark, which is x, times the frequency that occurred. So I had 1 plus 1 gives me 2. 2 3 times gives me 6, etc., etc. Then I sum this column to get the sum of x, the sum of my values, and I divide by 40, so same as in the previous slide, to get 5,05. So it's just a personal preference whether you want to do it in the table or whether you just write it out long in a fraction. Now for median. There were 40 values in that table, and here's the table again. Is it worth my time to write these values in ascending order, knowing that with 40 values, there's a possibility that I'll make a mistake? Instead of writing them in ascending order, I'm going to use my frequency table, because the frequency table already has the values in ascending order. I have 2 number 1s. I have 3 number 2s, and on and on. So just by grouping it this way, I've put them in ascending order already. We're going to make use of this nice formula to find the position of the median. And this is useful when you have big data sets. You might get even bigger data sets, 1,000 values or 10,000 values. And you're not going to be sitting through sifting through the values. Much faster to use a formula. We know that the number of values, or n, is 40. So the position of the median is 20,5. Now this makes sense. We have 40 data values. We know that the median is the halfway point. So halfway between 40 is around about 20. But we also know that when we have an even number of values, we have to take the average between our two middle values. So what this position is telling me, this 20,5, is that the median lies between the 20th and the 21st values, and we would have to take the average between those two. Now we just have to figure out where are the 20th and 21st values. And to do that, what I like to do is I like to add a column to my table called cumulative frequency. And you don't need to worry about the sum of the frequencies. Look what I'm going to do. I take my frequency and add it to the one before it. So basically what I'm doing is I'm seeing how many data points have I gone through already. Once I get to 2, I've gone through 5 data points in total. Once I get to 3, I've gone through 9 people in total. When I get to a score of 4, I've gone through 19 people in total. But now I need to be aware because I'm looking for the value that's between the 20th and 21st values. So if I add my next mark, which is 5, I will have gone through 25 values, so I've passed the 20th and 21st. That means that the median has to be 5, because the 20th and 21st values are in this group. So the median is therefore 5. If that didn't make sense yet, we will do this again when we do grouped data in our last lesson. So don't despair. This is a very relatively advanced problem. Lastly, the mode, nice and easy one. So the mode here is the number that occurs the most. So I'm looking at which one has the highest frequency. And it's easy to see this, to me, it's easier to see this on the bar graph because I can see that number 4 had the most number of respondents, so it has to be the mode. So let's look at everything all together and do a little bit of analysis. If you're the owner of this restaurant, you're the one who called for these customer service surveys to be done. And you see that we have a bar graph here. We have a mean of 5,05, median, and mode. Now the maximum score was 10. So if you're getting a mean of 5,05, which is very similar to the median, that's not very good. So I would say as the manager of this restaurant, there's something that needs to change about my customer service, and that would be worth a little bit more investigation. I think in this case, the mean and the median are both good representatives of the data, and mode is helpful as well. So in an ideal world, you would get all 3 measures to be able to understand what's happening with the data. Our last example today is a little bit more of an extension problem, so a little bit more challenging. So I suggest that you pause the video and see if you can get it started on your own. Right. If the mean weight of a class of 21 boys is 52 kilograms, I'm going to set this up as an algebraic equation. So I know that my mean, I'll get my pointer, the mean was 52, and that was for 21 boys. I don't know what their total weight was, so what the sum was, but I can multiply across by 21. So the sum of all of these 21 boys' weights was 1,092 kilograms. Now we're adding a boy to the class, and that changes the average. And we want to figure out what he weighs. So my new average is 52.4. I now have 22 boys in the class, and the sum is going to be my old sum, so the original 21 boys, plus whatever the new boy weighs, and I've called him X, but you could call him anything else. Solving, so multiply by 22 first and subtract 1092. I get x equals to 60,8 kilograms. All right, so we've summarized mean, median, and mode. In our next lesson, we will talk about quartiles. For homework, page 227 to 228, A, C, E, and G. As extension, for those of you who want extra practice, some more difficult problems, you're going to do I and J.